You are Locked On Clippers Postcast, part of Locked On Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Clippers Postcast. I am Pete Fox, covering sports in LA for ESPN Radio and NBC Sports Radio dating back to 2007. Well, it's Clippers-Wizards game. Was a nice bounce-back performance for them. It's not quite over yet, but it's been over for about a quarter and a half as the Clippers kind of got right after letting one slip against the Lakers. Clearly, we're over it, but I don't know that I am. And we'll get to that in just a second. Thank you for watching us on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. Make us your first watch and listen every day, your team every day here on Locked On Sports. And you can listen on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. Tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Final score, 140-115, as the Clippers exercise a little demon after losing to the Lakers a couple of nights ago when leading by 21 going into the fourth quarter. As I said, they moved past it pretty well. I speculated that that's how Ty Lue would handle it. I heard his comments after the game as I was doing the postcast, so I didn't hear him immediately, but he said something to the effect of, we can't make every loss about that loss. It's our whole season cannot be centered on that one loss. Like, it's an entire season, play a lot of games. We lose some games, right? We lose some tough ones. So we can't make it all about this one game. We can't be really devastated that we had one bad quarter. True. Good point. Way to minimize a devastating loss. He didn't, as far as we know, he didn't make it into a teaching moment. He just kind of said, turn the page, let's move on. And I'm okay with that. The Clippers did. They came out tonight. First quarter was very, very, very typical for them. 33-30 at the end of the first quarter. It was nothing flashy, nothing ugly. Kawhi missed his first couple of shots, which I was like, what is going on? When you have a guy like Kawhi Leonard on your team who generally starts fast. I mean, that's one of his things. He makes his first bucket more often than not. He has a very high shooting percentage, like right around 60%. His 3-point percentage is close to 50. I think it's 45-ish. So when he misses a couple to start the game, I think he missed 3 of 4, but he got fouled, so it turned into points anyway. And then Harden had a slow start. You're kind of like, all right, I don't think we're going to lose to the Wiz. They have 9 wins. They played an overtime game last night against the Lakers. So they're obviously a little gassed. A bad team that, gave the Lakers a run. They probably feel really good about that. So tonight, they're going to come out and just go through the motions. I don't know where they go next, but they're probably still on the road, but definitely leaving LA. So it felt like, this was going to be a comfortable Clippers win. And then in the second quarter, James Harden got rolling, hit 5 consecutive threes, which was awesome and very, very fun and exciting. But there were still some things coming out of the break. Christina Pink talked to Coach Brian Shaw, and asked him, what were your thoughts? How did you like the defense? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, our transition defense was still not good. So, there are still things that this team needs to work on, that they need to improve upon. And obviously when you beat a 9-win team by a score of 140 to 115. So that's, a nice 25 point victory, easily covering any spread that they had in that one. You definitely come away feeling good, but let's not get too excited, right? Let's be Brian Shaw rather, and say, hey, yes, James Harden had a great night. Kawhi Leonard looked great, but we didn't do everything perfectly. And I don't know. I guess my expectations are a little too high. I feel like when you know what a team is capable of, you kind of expect that, or at least something close to that on a regular basis. And when they're not doing it, you get kind of upset and you criticize and you get harsh on them. So it's a good win, but don't get overly excited about this win, beating a 9-win Wizards team on the road who hasn't won in LA against the Clippers for 15 years. I think that this has to feel good for the Clippers, right? It's kind of that whole, to use another Bull Durham analogy, when they were going through a bad streak there, they needed a rain out, so they went and broke into the stadium and turned on the sprinklers. And the game was rained out, and they all went out, and I think they got drunk and had fun and kind of just exercised some demons and, let that losing streak roll off their back. So the Clippers kind of felt that same way tonight. Back-to-back losses. It wasn't, a very long losing streak, but it was definitely a funk that they were in, especially coming off that loss to LeBron James, who outscored them in the fourth all by himself. That's the one that I just couldn't get past. That to me is embarrassing. Like, how do you let one guy beat you? I know he's one of the greatest of all time, but LeBron scored 19 in the fourth quarter on Wednesday, and the Clippers scored 16. They were 235-0 as an organization with a 19-point lead in the fourth quarter. 235-0. So, I guess that's the entire time they've been the Clippers. Doesn't include the Buffalo Braves, I'm assuming, but maybe it does. 230. Like, how many times are you leading by 19 in the fourth quarter when you're the Clippers, right? They're good now, but they haven't always been. They've been terrible for many, many, many decades. So that's a huge streak. That one knocked me over. I wish I would have been able to share that with you on Wednesday, but I didn't stumble into it till after the show. So yeah, that was a big one. So tonight, to come out and put one on the Wizards, stretch your legs, shake off the demons, fill it up. James Harden, 5 consecutive threes. He finished the night with 6 threes and 28 points to lead the Clippers. And Kawhi Leonard, 1 on his tail. In 29 minutes, he had 27 points, 9 of 20. So again, just under 50% after missing those first 2 shots. He was perfect from the line, 2 of 8 from beyond the arc. So that's not a Kawhi Leonard-like stat line when it comes to his percentages, but he did have 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block, and 1 steal. So a great performance from those 2 guys. And most importantly, I think the performance that we should probably be most excited about was Paul George. Came out hot in the first quarter, started filling it up right away, hit his first 3 shots, I believe. He had 6 right away. Maybe it was 7 because he had a 3, 2 on the night. He was 8 of 15, so just over 50%, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and no turnovers. How about that? Finishing with 22 points. A big injury that could be devastating to a certain extent for the Clippers, but it could also be helpful. We'll talk about that next. All right. Tonight's show, as I said, is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 free dollars in bonus bucks if your bet wins. Bet all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, Clippers with a dominant win over the Washington Wiz, who are definitely in a rebuilding phase. 140-115, the final. The big injury on the night, Russel Westbrook fractures his left hand. He's just kind of trying to knock a ball away, and it got in there a little weird. It didn't look that bad at all when they replayed it, but broke one of his metatarsals there, or maybe it's a metatarpal. Metatarpal, I think, is foot. Metatarsal is hand. I've broken one in my hand more than once. Sadly, it wasn't playing basketball. One time I did break it playing tennis, though. I was backpedaling and I tripped and fell and broke. No, that was my wrist. I broke my wrist doing that. My metatarsal fractures both were from being a drunk, angry, ticked off, a-hole teenager punching a wall. Not a person, a wall. That's something I could see Russell Westbrook doing, like in the locker room. But I hope not. I hope that he focuses his energy on the court, and more than anything, I hope he gets healthy from this sooner before later. But generally, these injuries are 6 weeks. A broken metatarsal is 6 weeks. There was speculation that maybe he'll, brace it and run through it since it's his left hand, potentially. But more than likely, he's going to miss some time. And through this month of March, which is very, very tough for them, that could be harmful. But at the same time, it could also be a little helpful because it might give somebody else a little bit more of an opportunity. They speculated that would be Bones Highland that might be filling in for Westbrook during the injury. He played 16 minutes tonight, had 2 points, going 1 of 7, was 0 for 4 from beyond the arc. So obviously a lot of rust on him. As Brian Seaman put it, he hasn't seen Bones Highland in a month of Sundays on the court. I don't know if it's Boston Jr. It potentially could be Coffey or Powell. Those guys could get more minutes in that 5 or 6 minute mark of the first quarter when Russell Westbrook usually comes in. But the thing about Westbrook that this team is going to miss the most, it's not the scoring, it's not the steals, it's not the assists, it is the energy. His energy is going to be missed. And this month is very, very tough. The Clippers are going to have to fish or cut bait, as they say. 17 games in this month of March with 4 back-to-backs, which start on Sunday in Minnesota. I believe it's a noon start against the T-Wolves. So, and then right after on Monday, a big game as well. So, I mean, they're going to have to, ratchet things up, if you will, and start playing hard because you can't keep losing to the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I was looking back at the schedule. I was like, when's the last good win that they've had, right? Oh, yeah. Monday, it's the Bucks. So it doesn't get any easier. A back-to-back with the Timberwolves and the Bucks on the road. That's going to be tough. If they can get one of those two, preferably against the Timberwolves because it's a Western Conference team, that would be more beneficial. But I look back and I said, when's the last good win they had? And I would say probably in Oakland or San Francisco, rather, against the Golden State Warriors. And then a few games before that against Miami in South Beach. Those were 2 very nice wins. They also beat Atlanta during that streak. That was on the Grammy trip. They played well on that trip, 6-1. So the Golden State was after the Grammy trip. Miami was part of it. But those are 2 nice wins. The Memphis win, they won. Yeah, but that was ugly for 3.5 quarters. They turned it on in the 4th and won that game. So, following that, they got spanked by the Kings. And then, of course, the Laker unraveling when they surrendered a 21-point lead in the 4th quarter. So these wins are nice. They make you feel good, right? But I also think let's not get too excited about it, right? Let's not think, oh, look at us dominating. They played well. You just have to be able to take what they did here and transfer it to a good team. The one thing about Paul George's performance tonight was not the points. It was the way he was playing freely and aggressively. That was the thing that seemed very different of late for Paul George. He was comfortable. He was finding his spot aggressively, taking the shot. He wasn't settling for bad looks. He was playing the kind of game that we expect Paul George to play. So, I think the fact that he came right out and did it in the first quarter, he didn't have to find the game in the second or the third. The fact that he came out right away and was dialed in and then continued to play much later than a lot of the other starters. He played into the 4th quarter. All of that, I think, was just really, really encouraging and good for Paul George. So I've said multiple times that I don't think they lose those games against the Lakers and the Kings if they have Paul George. Maybe the Kings game, but I don't think they let that Lakers game slip through their fingertips. But who knows? When LeBron starts doing that, anything is possible. But it's never a bad thing to have a guy like Paul George on your team playing well, right? So Paul George being out there is never a bad thing. I can't look at it and say, well, we're better when Paul George is injured. There were times when I was working for ESPN Radio covering the Lakers and Kobe would be hurt. Fans would call the radio station on a regular basis and say, this team is better without Kobe Bryant. And we would all just laugh and hang up the phone and look at each other like, what are they smoking? Like, I'm sorry, there is no team that is ever better without Kobe Bryant. It's just not possible. It's kind of, I mean, I'm not trying to compare Paul George to Kobe Bryant, but they're both stars, different level stars, but still stars. So you don't ever want a guy like Paul George to be out. They've definitely figured it out. I'm not sure. The question I had in the first quarter about James Harden was got off to a slow start, but when he sees Paul George going off, is he like, all right, cool, I'll just chill for a little bit here. I'll pass the ball. But he really had just an ugly first quarter. Considering how he finished, it's a great night for James Harden because he turned the ball over. He was lazy. He was slow. I mean, bad passes, missed shots, short. Everything about his first quarter was just forgetful. By the end of the night, he led the way with 28, including 5 consecutive threes. And they were like barely touching the rim threes. They were ripping the cords. That's one of my favorite sounds in all of sports is the basketball ripping the cords. It's right up there with a solid base hit or a home run, a ripped forehand in tennis. And the fourth one that I absolutely love is in a golf, just a solid schwack off the tee from a driver. Those are just sounds that you can't replicate as an amateur. For whatever reason, when the pros do those things, like swish a basketball, hit a home run with a wood bat, hit a drive off the tee that goes 350 yards. And then what was the fourth one? I can't even remember now. So basketball, the swish, baseball, the home run, tennis. Yeah, that schwack forehand down the line from a professional tennis player. I play tennis. No matter how hard I swing the racket, I can never make that sound. It's just impossible because the ball's not coming at me as hard as it is with a pro, and I don't swing the racket nearly as hard. But anyway, the point is that when those guys are dialed in, it's a different level, and it's exciting to watch and listen to. James Harden was on fire tonight in spite of a slow first quarter. So that was good to see that he turned it around quickly. Paul George maintained it throughout the game into the third quarter. They were playing defense. The transition defense was probably the one thing that wasn't great, but other than that, everything, they were moving the ball well, things that we've complained about. A lot of talk coming into this game about the live ball turnovers, and that was another thing that was better. We'll talk specifically about that, the stats on the night, and we'll also get into the bucket list and the superlatives right after this. Thank you for watching us on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel and listening on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. All right, tonight's show also brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less on 2 to 6 players and their stat projections for the night and watch the winnings roll in up to 25 times your money. I've been trying to predict when Paul George was going to come back and have a good night. And I don't know that I forgot all about making my prize picks till midway through the game. So I ended up making just a random weird one on a golfer and can't even remember what the other one was. It was just something so super random that it will be fun because it's different and it's not locked in on one game. It is 2 different games. So it's this golfer that won last week who I'm not even familiar with, but he had a nice performance winning last week, and he had a above or below 4 birdies. He had 4 birdies today, so why can't he have 4 birdies tomorrow? Jake Knapp is his name, and I locked that in or projected it or whatever it's called. It's not called a parlay. It's called something else. A pick combo along with Michael Penix Jr.'s 40 time at the NFL Combine. How's that for totally random? He runs the 40, they say, at 4.64. So you go more or less. There's a lot of hype around this guy. Hopefully he feels it because I selected him at less than 4.64. You can do basketball season projections, pick combos for players. You can do 2, 3, 4. You can do points or points, rebounds, and assists, which I like to do because that makes it a little bit more exciting. It's also with PrizePicks, very easy to deposit and withdraw your money. They're very simple, easy gameplay options, an enormous selection of players and stat types. It was what makes PrizePicks the number one daily fantasy app. I also will say that making my first deposit was very, very simple, and I got 100% bonus up to $100. So check them out, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA, and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Clippers with a dominant 140-115 win over the lowly Washington Wizards, who came in with just 9 wins. So it's a good win for them. It's a confidence boosting win as they get ready to head out on the road. A big one on Sunday in Milwaukee. No, Milwaukee's Monday. In Minnesota against the Timberwolves. And then on Monday in Milwaukee against the Bucks. So this hopefully is a confidence building win. They can shake off that ugly loss to the Lakers and say, hey, all right, this is what we can do. This is what we're capable of. And this is what we need to maintain over the next month. This month of March is going to be huge for them. As I said, 17 total games, 16 now, if you count tonight's game as being in their rear view, and 4 back-to-backs. They'll play Minnesota twice this month, so they can still win that season series against the Timberwolves. All right, let's get into tonight's bucket list. In at number 5, Daniel Tice, who got the start for the Clippers at 6:36 of the first. He had a 3, hit his first 3 shots, wrapped up that section of 3 shots with a triple to make it 15-14. Daniel Tice is one guy that I look at and I say, you know, I'm not sure if I want him in there more or less. I know there are people that watch the show here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel that think Mason Plumlee should sit on the bench more, and they'd like to see less of him. But I feel like both of these guys have flashes of brilliance where you're like, all right, let's see more of that. And I think Ty Lue does a really good job of managing the 3 of them. Zubac's again out tonight. He's kind of day to day. They don't really know exactly how long the ankle's going to keep him out, but you know, it's a nice place to be in, to have Plumlee and Daniel Tice out there to fill in. Tice played 20 minutes, 4 of 5, 1 3 for 9 points. So a really solid performance from him. And at number 4, James Harden hit 3 consecutive threes. He would hit 2 more to make it 5 consecutive, but the first 3 were like bang, bang, bang right in a row. First one coming at the 9:11 mark of the second one coming at the 8:40 mark, and then just 20 seconds later at the 8:20 mark. That made it 49-38. Number 3 on tonight's bucket list, Coffee Powell alley-oop. At the 6:50 mark of the third, it made it 54-40, and it was just perfectly executed, flawless, and sweet. Coffee to Powell for the dunk. In at number 2, off a Paul George miss, Kawhi Leonard with a big follow dunk, which is always nice to see with the putback. And just 2 minutes later, another penetrating, long arm clawed dunk from Kawhi Leonard to make it 175. So at that point, it was out of reach. And the number 1 bucket of the night on the bucket list, a coffee 3. What was interesting about this shot, he got the pass in the corner from Bones Highland, and it was down by his ankles. He then hoisted it and it went in. So it wasn't quite the in rhythm pass that you would hope for, but nonetheless, he made it work. So took the pass down at his feet, banged it away at the 6:31 mark. That made it 125-101. And most importantly, it forced a timeout for the Wiz. So 5 or more fantastic baskets tonight from the Clippers in a dominant 140-115 win over the Washington Wizards to improve to 30-28 and 21-8 as the home team. As for our tonight's superlatives, the feel-good performance for me was from James Harden. He was just going off. I mean, after an ugly first quarter, the fact that, He turned it around, 5 consecutive threes, 6 on the night, perfect from the line, 8 assists. That's kind of been his number of late, right? 8 assists. I know the number was 10 for quite a while, but I think that 8's enough. It's good, as long as he's passing the ball and facilitating the offense, which he'll have to do more now with Westbrook out, right? I don't know that they're going to give that much time to Bones Highland. We'll see. But I think that's just wishful thinking by the announcers there for whatever reason. I don't know Bones Highland that well. I don't know what he's capable of, but it didn't seem not good tonight, going 1 of 7. So he might get some extra minutes for sure. He's not going to be sitting over there, stretching his hamstrings on the bench. He'll play a little bit more, but all in all, I would say it's probably going to be more Coffey, more Powell, maybe Brown, Kobe Brown. I don't know. He played 5 minutes tonight, 2 points. We'll see if it's Bones Highland or not, but the feel good performance, James Harden, filling it up, and you have to assume that he'll get more minutes, and hopefully his confidence remains high. It's always high, right? James Harden is never lacking of confidence, but 9 of 13 tonight, a fantastic performance for 28 points. As for my most likely to do a dance in the locker room in front of his teammates because he feels so excited about the night, would be Paul George, right? Coming back after missing a game, and then a few games before that, he didn't play well. 8 of 15 tonight, a couple of threes, 4 of 5 from the line, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, no turnovers, 29 points. And as we said multiple times, more importantly than anything, just in rhythm, flowing, finding the open looks, not settling. So just all in all, a really solid performance that would definitely make me want to dance if I'm Paul George. And lastly, the most active hands of the night. And no, I'm not going to make a joke about Westbrook, but I thought about it for a second. The most active hands of the night were James Harden. He was back to that thing where he's sticking his hands in, knocking balls away that would then bounce off the opponent's knee or foot and go out. He did it 2 or 3 times. They reviewed one, and it stood up for the Clippers. So, James Harden back to playing defense as well. They were explaining that those plays when the defender will knock a ball out of the offensive player's hand like that, it's not a turnover. They call it a blocked shot. So James Harden tonight with 3 blocked shots, playing very well. So that's positive, good stuff, good defensive, active hand action that we love to see for this Clipper team. So all in all, an A+ performance on the night. Well, let's say A, because I gave them a B in the first quarter. So 3 A's and a B equals maybe an A- all in all. It's a dominant win over a bad team. It's exactly what you would expect. I just don't want to get too excited. I hope that they can build on it. I hope that they can take away the positives and feel confident about themselves. And more than anything, I hope that it washes away most of that Laker defeat. I also hope that they still have some of that hanging around in the back of their mind. Boy, we can't do that again. We can't let that happen. Fuel. Let's hope it's fuel for them in this tough stretch of the season, this tough month of March where they have 4 back-to-backs, which start on Sunday. It's a noon tip, so we'll see you after that game. And when they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota at Target Center. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk then. Have a good night. Thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel and the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. Talk to you on Sunday.